Okay, we're going to look at the Mexican-American War, this idea of manifest destiny, and kind of the outcomes of all this. All right, so we're going to start with the election of 1844, kind of a strange election. Martin Van Buren, who was a president, is going to come back and try to become president again, and then some goofy stuff. The Democrats can't decide on a candidate. And we'll get this guy, James K. Polk, who no one ever heard of before. Okay, so let's kind of see what happens here. So we have, Van Buren makes a mistake. He's a northerner, and he's a Democrat, and he's gonna be against annexing Texas because he has to kind of make his northern wing of his party okay. Texas is a big issue because of slavery, expanding the South, expanding the West. So he makes that mistake of opposing this annexation. John C. Calhoun is a Democrat. He's in favor of annexation. All right, he's a very strong pro-slavery candidate here, and we'll look more at John C. Calhoun. He used to be Jackson's vice president, the guy with the whole nullification issue. All right. So what happens is, Van Buren sees, okay, I'm not going to be able to get enough support, so he puts his backing to this guy James K. Polk, this southerner, okay, North Carolina, and Polk is going to win the nomination from the party on the 9th ballot. So they keep having to go back until they can get a candidate that they're willing to nominate. All right, and he's a strong supporter of manifest destiny. All right, and this is going to be a big issue. Really, since the start in the United States, we've had this destiny from God to expand. It's clear, it's manifest, it's our destiny as Americans. And really, Polk embodies this idea. All right. So 1844 election, you have Clay, okay, running for the Whigs, and Polk running for the Democrats. All right, and Polk's going to win the election. Okay. You can see, it's obviously pretty close, 48 to 50%. And New England, all right, goes for Clay. Remember, he's all about protective tariffs. He's all about nationalized banks. But you see the South and the West all goes Democrat, and this is really the start of this. When we get to the Civil War and the Democrats being the party of slavery, we'll see this. Okay, so Polk is going to be the last kind of strong president before the Civil War. The rest of them are kind of weak, don't deal with a lot of the problems leading up to the Civil War, but Polk is a very strong president. Okay, nicknamed Young Hickory. All right, I mean, he's kind of a mini-me version of Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson's his idol. He really looks up to the way Jackson got stuff done. All right, and this is a big thing. Polk comes out and says, I'm only serving one term. All right, you think about our current president and presidents, that usually plan on running 2 terms. They say as soon as they're inaugurated, they're already thinking about their reelection. And if you have to think about your reelection, you have to kind of tiptoe on certain things. If you come out and say, you know what, I'm only serving 1 term, all right, you're not going to care who you piss off. You're just going to get your stuff done because you don't have to run for re-election. And this is Polk really shows this. At 49, he's the youngest president at the time. His goals, all right, first thing, this independent treasury that Van Buren introduced with the divorce bill. We saw the issues, remember, think about Jackson, the issues with the bank and having the treasury, the money department separate from other branches of the government, so you don't have that conflict of interest. All right, tariff reductions. All right, Jackson wasn't a huge supporter of tariffs. The nullification crisis, but he was in favor of following the law of the nation. As a Southerner, tariffs aren't good for the South. And Polk is really going and trying to reduce a lot of these tariffs that are left over from the 1830s. Okay. Settle this Oregon area. We get it in this, the Adams-Onis Treaty, 1818, 1819. It's kind of both ours. We both have claims to it. Well, he wants to settle this once and for all. Okay. And lastly, he wants to buy California from Mexico. All right. You know, he's going to add a lot of land. Okay, James Polk. So you could see his issues, manifest destiny, expanding, and figuring out the money issue. Okay, so this cartoon comes up a lot. All right, and we'll talk about this in class. But you look at this idea of manifest destiny. Okay, and you see what's on this side, the left side of the picture, and what's on the right side. You see telegrams, you see railroads, you see settlers coming in with agriculture and modern equipment. It's light. You see the ships in the harbor. Over here it's dark. You see the wild beasts and the buffaloes and the savage Indians. And this idea that, you know, back to Jamestown, I mean, we are helping these people out. Okay, we are you know, doing this for them. It's for their benefit. It's our destiny as Americans to spread our civilization, no matter what's in our way, no matter who it harms, because in the outcome, in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be better for them. Okay. Now, reasons for manifest destiny. We now have technology. I mean, now we can. We have the telegraph. We have the railroad. We can get long distances, and we need to improve on this technology. Okay, we can link Oregon and California to the rest of the United States. And this idea of republicanism, of democracy, these savage Indians and Mexicans, they don't really fully you know, embody what we're all about, and we know what's best. All right, democracy needs to flourish. Civilization, we looked at this with the Indians time and time again. They're uncivilized, they're savages. We need to give them the benefits of our American civilization. Okay, we are doing them a favor. All right. Now, Southerners want to get more slave states. You know, a lot of this in the West and the South down here is going to be open up for slavery. And that's a big issue. I mean, the roots of the Civil War are starting now. I mean, they started earlier, but they're really getting, the heat is starting to get turned up. You know, you think of this as a kettle on top of the range, you know, and it's about at 3. I mean, it's just starting to get those little bubbles with manifest destiny. Okay. New markets. We get to the Pacific Ocean. We have California. We have Oregon. We have these ports, and we're really going to start branching off in the Pacific as far as our trade goes. All right. And really, this fear of Great Britain, you know, Daddy, the big brother, that if we don't, you know, take care of them, they're just going to keep on creeping down, and we're going to have more issues. I mean, again, this is only 25, 30 years, you know, after, you know, 35 years after the War of 1812, people are still bitter and have issues with Great Britain. All right. So this first issue, here's Oregon. Okay, so here's Alaska. And you have this disputed area that, you know, the United States wants up here. Okay, Great Britain wants down here, close to Mexico. And you see this battle cry of 54-40 or fight. Polk comes out with this. You know, we are going to fight. We're going to get this. All right, we want this land. They got the fur trade. You have other fishing areas, trading ports, and Great Britain doesn't want to fight. All right. So although we want this and they want this, we actually come to an agreement in the 49th parallel, which is our Canadian border now, gets settled. Okay, so Oregon Territory becomes ours, and you know, and this is one of his goals, and accomplishes it without a fight. All right. So tensions leading into the Mexican War. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in Mexico, and we force their leader to sign over Texas to us. Okay. To Sam Houston, you know, we have the Alamo and Santa Ana, and they apply to become a state. All right, you know, we annex them. We say, okay, Texas, you are now ours. And there's issues on the southern border. Does it go all the way down to the Rio Grande? Is it a couple hundred miles up? They can't figure out this boundary line. Okay, so Mexican-American relations are not looking good. I mean, as far as Texas breaks off into its own country. And if you've ever been to Texas, Texas kind of is like its own country. It's very different. I was just talking about this with Mr. Kwame, and it's like, man, Texas is like, you need a passport to go into Texas. It's just different. If you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so Polk sends down this group to buy California and to settle this boundary dispute with the Mexicans. All right, and the Mexicans say no. All right, we're not accepting this, and this is going to be the start of it. And so Polk orders troops go down to the border, get ready for war, and you have the first casualties of the war on the southern border, and this is where we in Texas, where we in Mexico, and this is going to come up with President Lincoln on the spot resolution. Where exactly is this spot that this fighting happened? But we're really antagonizing them and kind of putting our troops there, like, all right, you gonna come get us, or you gonna mess with us? And once they mess with us, that's enough to get this war resolution through. Okay, so we go to war with Mexico. All right, and we're not going to go through the battles and the different tactics and all of this. But what comes out of this is you're getting future presidents and future military leaders are getting their experience in this war. I mean, we're going to see 3 future presidents fighting in the war. Generals, the Civil War generals fighting in these wars, getting ready. And when we think about the outcomes of the war, a lot of these, it's fought in the South, so the South is going to want certain things. Okay, so the war goes on. Okay, you can see this sectional issues with slavery. It's this manifest destiny, expanding our territory. Now, support for and against the war, it's kind of there's going to be some opposition, and a lot of this is on slavery. Okay, it's seen as this war of aggression, which you see today, talking about Iraq and Afghanistan, that we are instigating. Okay, Calhoun, it doesn't even vote for the war because he sees this as kind of making, stirring the pot with this sectional issues on slavery. Webster, okay, saying he's being unconstitutional, how Polk is going to war with putting the troops there, that not talking to Congress about what to do with the troops. Henry David Thoreau, a famous writer, goes to jail because he doesn't pay his poll tax, because he says, I'm not paying a tax to a country that's engaging in this immoral war that really has slavery at the roots of it. All right. John Quincy Adams was going to be a big abolitionist against the war, and the young Abraham Lincoln, is questioning the spot, all right, the spot resolution. Were we on American soil? Were we on Mexican soil? It matters, all right? Are we on their territory? Are they on our territory? Okay, so a lot of these issues already start, and people are starting to have their disagreements, and the union's starting to slowly kind of break apart, in terms of slavery, in regards of slavery. Okay, so Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ends the war, and the outcomes of the war. This is what we're going to look at. All right, impact of the war. We gain 1.5 million square miles of new territory. So manifest destiny works pretty well. Okay. I'm sorry, 500,000. I'm sorry, 500,000 square miles. Okay. Deaths. More. You see this. 13,000 die. Only 1,700 of that because of combat. The rest are disease. Okay, so disease kills almost 10 times more than actually fighting does. But still 13,000 Americans dead. Okay, like I talked about before, the breeding ground for these young military officers in the Civil War. Okay, problems with slavery, political problems, North and South. What are we going to do with all this territory? David Wilmot from Massachusetts puts in a resolution, a provision, the Wilmot Proviso, during the war that says all this land that we're going to get, we're going to outlaw slavery. Okay, and now it doesn't pass the Senate, but it's starting to see, what are we going to do with this territory? Is it going to be free? Is it going to be slave? We just added 500,000 square feet of territory. There's going to be some new states, and we have to decide, are they going to be free or are they going to be slave? Okay. We are now Pacific power. We now have Oregon. We now have California. We control both coasts, sea to shining sea. And economically, and militarily, we're a bigger power. Okay. And really, this expansion, of Russia coming down from Alaska, Great Britain is out. France was messing around in Mexico. We're really the masters of North America. Okay, so you see the impacts of the war here. You see the map. Okay, before his presidency and after his presidency. All this here, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, all this taken from Mexico, California. All right, manifest destiny works pretty well for us. Okay, so we'll talk about this more in class, and